My name is Emily. For most of my life, I thought I knew who I was, careful, quiet, and responsible. I lived in a small apartment in the city, above a little cafe I visited every morning. The smell of coffee and pastries was my daily companion, and I loved the routine of my ordinary life. Every day felt safe, predictable, and empty. I told myself I didn't need excitement. I didn't need love. I didn't need someone to shake the walls I had carefully built around my heart. I spent my mornings at university, attending lectures, writing notes, and watching other students chat and laugh while I stayed quiet in the back row. The days were long and the nights longer, but I was safe. Then one autumn morning, he walked into my world. His name was Jonathan. He was a visiting professor, a man whose presence made the room quiet without even trying. He was tall, with silver streaks in his hair, and a calm voice that somehow carried authority and warmth at the same time. I noticed him immediately, not just because of his age, which could have made him my father, but because he seemed to see the world differently, like he understood things I had never dared to think. He smiled faintly at me the first time our eyes met, and my chest tightened. I told myself it was nothing, just a teacher, just a man doing his job. But the next day, he noticed me again. And the day after that, it started small. A question about the lecture, a comment on my notes. His attention was gentle, unobtrusive, yet somehow it made my heart race in a way I hadn't expected. I answered carefully, keeping my words short, careful not to betray how much I wanted him to notice me more. Days turned into weeks. I began to look forward to his classes, to his brief smiles, to the way he would pause by my desk to hand me a book or explain a difficult concept. I felt alive in a way I hadn't for years. And slowly, the thought that I was falling for him, despite everything his age, his experience, the impossibility of it, crept into my heart. One rainy afternoon, after class, I lingered in the hallway under the excuse of asking a question. He walked past, and our hands brushed. It was brief, accidental, but I felt an electric shock run through me. He looked at me with a mixture of surprise and hesitation, and then his lips curved into a faint, almost imperceptible smile. My heart was pounding. That night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed every word, every glance, every touch in my mind. I knew it was wrong. I knew he was much older, a man of the world, a man who shouldn't be entangled in the life of a naive girl like me. But I couldn't stop thinking about him. Weeks passed, and our interactions grew bolder. He would linger longer after lectures. He'd ask about my life, my family, my dreams. I felt seen, truly seen, in ways I had never experienced before. And every time he looked at me, I knew he saw something in me too. Something fragile and alive that he wanted to protect, and perhaps, secretly, desired. We began exchanging messages outside of class, at first about academic topics, then about books, music, and memories. The conversations were innocent on the surface, but they carried a tension that neither of us could fully ignore. The age gap was impossible to dismiss. I was 21. He was 42, twice my age. And yet, every word, every laugh, every shared secret pulled me closer. Then one evening, it happened. We were the last in the lecture hall, the rain tapping softly against the windows. I stayed behind, pretending to organize my notes. He approached, and our conversation faltered under the weight of unsaid words. And then, without warning, he reached out and brushed a strand of hair from my face. Our eyes met, and for a heartbeat, the world vanished. I should, he whispered, his voice trembling. But I can't stop thinking about you. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. I know, I admitted, barely above a whisper. From that night on, our stolen moments began. Coffee after dark, walks in quiet streets, conversations whispered over the phone. I memorized the lines of his face, the rhythm of his voice, the way his laughter carried both joy and regret. Loving him was intoxicating, dangerous, and impossible. But reality was relentless. He had a life beyond me, a world I could never fully enter. I had a future that stretched ahead, full of uncertainty and hope. And every time we were together, I knew we were stepping on the edge of something forbidden, something that could break both of us. The conflict was unbearable. I hated myself for needing him, and yet I couldn't let go. I hated that he made me feel alive in ways no one else ever had. And when he pulled back, when the weight of propriety and life outside of our bubble returned, I felt hollow, aching, and desperate. One rainy night, sitting across from him in his car, I whispered, "I wish this didn't have to end." He reached for my hand, holding it as if it could anchor both of us. "You deserve more than what I can give," he said softly. "You deserve someone who can be fully here for you, not someone already half gone into life." I wanted to scream, to beg him to stay, but deep down, I knew he was right. We could not last. The age, the world, the consequences, they all stood between us. When he finally let me go, it felt like the world had tilted. I walked home in the rain, soaked, trembling, and yet alive in a way I never had been. Years have passed since then. I've loved others, laughed with others, built pieces of a life I once imagined. But no one has ever looked at me the way he did. No one has ever made me feel that dangerous, impossible, intoxicating kind of love. And perhaps that's the curse of loving a man twice your age. You know it's wrong. You know it's doomed from the start. But you leap anyway, because sometimes the fall is worth more than the landing. And that is the end of my story. Thank you for listening. If it touched your heart, please subscribe, like, and share this video. Write a comment too. I love to read your thoughts. Thank you for your support.